hardwired and indirect inputs that the TCM uses to decide when to shift gears. Let's see what outputs the TCM uses to apply and release clutches, vary line pressure, and in general, control the 45 RFE transmission. Direct TCM outputs include the transmission control relay, which the TCM energizes in order to provide power to the pressure switches and shift solenoids. You saw earlier that the solenoid pack TRS assembly consists of the transmission range and temperature sensors, the pressure switches, and shift solenoids. The solenoid pack TRS assembly utilizes a 23-way electrical harness connector to link up with the TCM. The solenoid pack houses 1 pressure control solenoid and 6 shift solenoids. The TCM energizes the pressure control solenoid to control main line pressure. The 6 shift solenoids are for the underdrive, overdrive, second and fourth clutches, the low reverse clutch, and the multi-select solenoid, which has different functions based on manual valve position. To control hydraulic pressure applied to the clutch packs, the TCM turns the shift solenoids on or off depending on the desired gear. The default position of each shift solenoid varies. When de-energized, some solenoids are normally applied, which allows fluid to pass through to the clutch, and some solenoids are normally vented to route clutch fluid back to the sump. Another direct TCM output is the electronically modulated converter clutch, or EMCC. The TCM energizes the low reverse converter clutch solenoid to apply the torque converter clutch. The TCM varies the duty cycle of the LRCC solenoid based on engine and transmission data in order to provide smooth controlled engagement of the torque converter clutch. The TCM keeps the LRCC solenoid at full on when zero slip is reached. The TCM also has a couple of indirect outputs which it broadcasts to other modules over the PCI data bus. One of these is the Prindle state, which is used by other modules to sense manual lever position. The other indirect TCM output is the transmission fluid temperature, which is monitored by the PCM. Based on the trans fluid temperature, the PCM may energize the vehicle's electric cooling fan. Now you've seen all the mechanical and electronic components of the 45 RFE, as well as all the TCM inputs and outputs. When you put the electronic control and mechanical operation together, the 45 RFE works like this. The TCM takes its inputs into account to determine what gear the transmission should be in. The main factors affecting the shift schedule include the gear selector position, the input speed sensor and output speed sensor readings, the overdrive off switch state, the throttle angle from the throttle position sensor, and temperature inputs from the transmission temperature sensor, the ECT sensor, and the battery temperature sensor. The 5 clutches for forward gears, along with the converter clutch, are applied through the shift solenoids. Only the reverse clutch is not solenoid operated. It is applied through the manual valve. The valve body directs hydraulic fluid to the solenoid valves and clutch circuits, where the TCM controls clutch application by energizing different solenoids to obtain the desired gear ratio. All the while, the TCM monitors main line pressure through the line pressure sensor and adjusts this pressure using the pressure control solenoid. The result is consistently smooth, crisp shifts that enhance vehicle performance and increase the durability of the 45 RFE transmission. If the TCM sees certain problems, it shuts off power to itself. Loss of power to the TCM will result in limp-in mode operation, wherein the shift solenoids are de-energized and revert to their default positions. During limp-in, if the shift lever is in drive, the transmission will be in third gear, and if the shift lever is in manual second or low, the transmission will be in second gear. Before we cover some items related to diagnosis and service of the 45 RFE, try another review question. Which of the following is not part of the solenoid pack TRS assembly? A, the transmission temperature sensor. B, the overdrive pressure switch. C, the line pressure sensor. Or D, the transmission range sensor. Stop the tape to discuss the possible answers. C is the correct answer. The line pressure sensor is not part of the solenoid pack TRS assembly. Since the 45 RFE is electronically controlled, the diagnosis of suspected transmission problems will lead toward the electronic side as well, which means using the DRB scan tool. Don't forget, however, that the use of the appropriate manuals plays a key role. A new diagnostic manual for the 45 RFE will guide you through troubleshooting procedures, and the service manual for the vehicle you're working on contains additional transmission information. A 45 RFE transmission diagnostic procedures worksheet will be included as part of a warranty bulletin. When attempting to narrow down a problem with transmission operation, you should start by performing the shift lever position test with the DRB. Then, check for diagnostic trouble codes stored in the PCM. Always check for DTCs stored in the TCM. Since the 45 RFE is fully electronically controlled, many DTCs are new, and they will all be displayed as P codes. The mill will be illuminated for certain DTCs, and some DTCs will induce limp-in mode operation. After taking note of any DTCs that are set, check the clutch volume indexes, or CVIs. The CVI display shows the fluid fill volume of each clutch circuit. Other DRB features will give you further insight into what may be causing a particular problem. The DRB sensor display will show you what the TCM sees from its sensor inputs. And the input-output display will help you check the operation of components like the TRS and the pressure switches. You can also use the DRB to check the operation of the shift solenoids by using the actuators test. And don't overlook the fact that the DRB has a clutch test you can use to check the operation of the 45 RFE's clutches. As far as servicing the 45 RFE goes, there are some procedures you need to be aware of. But for now, technicians at the dealership will treat this new transmission a little differently than those in the past. Initially, the 45 RFE transmission will be serviced only as an assembly. The transmission removed from the vehicle should be shipped to Chrysler without draining the fluid. Before removing a 45 RFE from a vehicle, you should call the Star Center for assistance. If you do replace the transmission or the TCM, you should use the DRB to perform the Quick Learn procedure, which adjusts the TCM's CVI values. Remember, perform the Quick Learn procedure only after replacing the TCM or the entire transmission assembly. One important service item for the 45 RFE is checking the level of the transmission fluid. Be sure to use only Mopar Type 7176 plus 3 transmission fluid in the 1999 Jeep Grand Cherokee. When checking the fluid level on the transmission, remember that the middle of the operating range on the dipstick is the target level on a hot transmission, but anywhere in the operating range is sufficient. Never overfill the transmission fluid, and don't add fluid to a cool transmission. Another service item concerns disconnecting the transmission's 23-way connector. You must undo the release latch on the connector before disconnecting it. Otherwise, damage to the connector could occur. There are also numerous new special tools for use on the 45 RFE after the initial service as assembly only period. If you want more detailed information, check out a 45 RFE training class in your training center. A 2-day course titled 45 RFE Electronic Transmission Operation and Diagnosis is course number 0240716, and a 1-day repair course is number 0240808. Now give the last review question a try. True or false? You should perform the Quick Learn procedure only after replacing the entire 45 RFE transmission.